Hello students, is the screen visible to you all? Hello, is the screen visible to you all?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so is this visible now?
Yes,
Hello?
sir.
Okay, okay, so today we will do couple of things, two, three different things we will do. We will keep a mixed bag, and the first thing that we will be picking up is this poem. Okay, so first of all, hello everyone, and I welcome you all in this essay session for 2025 UPSC mains exam. I welcome all those who are watching this live and also those who would be watching this in its recorded format. So to begin, today I have several things on my agenda, three, four different things. Two poems are there, one more poem apart from this, two or three poems, and one theme, and a little bit on of presentation skills. So several things clubbed together, and there was a technical glitch. So in that duration, I had asked you to read this poem. This poem is extremely it's a poem that you can use in a wide range of essays. It shows human spirit, and it also somewhat, not directly, but it reflects the feminist zeal in a person who wants to claim the space which has been denied to her by the society quite often. So on these grounds, let's quickly start with this. Okay.
Sir,
Yes.
in the last class, we started discussing about rationality and reason, and then we went to this topic of what makes us human. So, shall I just leave some space to continue this discussion, or how are we going to proceed with this?
Actually, my intent is to revert to the discussion, but I just asked you
Oh,
to read this poem.
okay,
So
sir.
one is this aspect. We will finish this poem once. We'll just read it. It will hardly take 5-10 minutes, and then we will revert to that same discussion on humanism, which we had in the previous class.
Okay,
So
sir.
it is just a small break from our usual discussion. Okay, so here it is. This poem is quite self-explanatory. There is not much. It's a very easy poem, and it's very popular. It's a very iconic poem. Along with one more poem, "The Caged Bird," and this one is also very important. You can quote it in different essays. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise. Few paragraphs I will explain here, which are slightly more important. See, you may write me down in history. We have always seen that how the dominant group it often tries to write down narratives of the suppressed groups, of the dominated groups. So she may be writing from a standpoint of a black person or as a woman. We don't know. She hasn't mentioned that here in this poem categorically. But the point here is that whosoever a suppressed person is, a person who has been denied his or her right, she can take inspiration from this. With your bitter, twisted lies, you may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust I rise. See, dust is something which is very which is very insignificant thing. It is a very tiny grain. insignificant. In if we compare it to something like house or a tree or mountains and oceans, dust means nothing. But still, the poet is comparing herself with the dust because that dust signifies here that she will rise like dust because dust refuses to settle down. So she's comparing herself with dust over here. Does my sassiness upset you? That is her assertive, her vocal behavior. Does it upset you, the reader? She's asking, why are you beset with gloom? Because I walk like I got oil well pumping in my living room. Oil well denotes over here wealth, which in those years was a crucial factor in causing the rise of GDP to several nations. So she is making an indirect allusion over there. I've got wealth pumping in my living room. So that is the confidence she has, as if she has got sources of immense wealth in her own vicinity. Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hopes springing high, still I'll rise. This is the line which will quite often repeat. Do you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? I urge you all, please at least one or two stanzas you can try to remember. Either this stanza is very important, or maybe this one also you can mention somewhere. Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, cause I laugh like I have got gold mines digging in my own backyard. Again and again, she's showing as if she has got access to wealth and treasure and happiness and so on. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I will rise. Very beautiful lines. Sometimes in life, when you are stressed out, open this poem and read it. You will gain strength. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? And here we get a feel as if it's slightly feminist in tone because one of the um, important claims of feminist movement has been that how their sexiness or their sexuality has been suppressed and denied space by a patriarchal society. So here she says, "Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I have got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs?" The language it has some indirect meaning over here, where she is claiming her body. It is her body, and she is trying to assert the ownership of her body. Out of the hurts of history's shame, I will rise. Up from the past that rooted in pain, I rise. I am a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Now, here you notice it black. One small word is enough to make some allusions of this poet being a black Afro American. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. So beautiful poem. Try to remember a few lines. If not few lines, at least if you can remember this much thought, so that in case if you ever have to write an essay on culture, art, poetry, even if you write these words, that people from suppressed communities like Maya Angelou, from who is a black Afro American, she has tried, and people like her have tried to use literature and poetry to assert their claim that has always been denied to them. Okay, here we see a very assertive tone. The tone is very assertive in nature. So when there is oppression, when there is a theme of social injustice, art and culture, or courage, or these kind of things, or some essay related to women, then you can use the some of these lines or some of the idea that have been mentioned over here. Okay, so with this, I will close it here. I will now move to the important point that I wanted to bring forward in this discussion. Okay, so today, let us start this. Anyone has to say anything over here before we start the session? Can we go ahead? Okay, so let's start with essay session 9. 1 second, I will stop. I will restart this recording. Okay, so let us start with this essay session 9. So, I want to ask you all, my friends, a very simple question. What do you understand by humanism? What do you understand by it? Before I pour my ideas on this, what are your views on what humanism is?
The humanism is a space where desire is not demonized and values and utopian ideals are not idolized.
Desire is not
Demonized.
demonized and utopian,
Ideals are not idolized.
idealized or glorified. Idealized I have already written, so I will say glorified or romanticized, sort of, right? So very true. You you have reached the place where it would have taken a few minutes for me to reach. Okay, so this is exactly. Anyone else on what is humanism?
So it's a collective set of ideas which help us to define what being human means.
What being human means?
Yes.
Yes. Can you give some examples?
So experiencing emotions,
Experiencing emotions. Pretty good.
cognitive abilities,
Cognitive abilities. Okay, very good. So most of you, yeah, you're right. Actually, you're right. Pretty much to the point. And anyone else on what we can say? What we can say? What is humanism? See, most probably, I don't think that they would ask you a question in which you will have to define what humanism is. Mm, Possibly, chances are less. But still, you would need to know what humanism is so that you can grow some perspectives. And this is exactly where I wanted to bring the discussion towards that humanism is something where desires are not demonized and where we are not obsessed with utopian ideals or a perfect state or an ideal society because being human mean being imperfect. Okay, so let me start over here. What humanism means, one thing which we can say is that humanism, it means keep human at the center. Keep human at the center. Do you remember that famous drawing or sculpture rather? There is this. I will draw a very funny version of it, but there is some sculpture or a painting kind of thing in which a man is circled by some periphery sort of thing. It's been attributed that I think Michelangelo or some person has drawn that. It was a very starting point, or I think a very famous point from which humanism picked up. So what it means is, see, we are keeping human being at the center. We are keeping man at the center. But has it always been the case that have we always kept human being at the center? Do you think so? That we have kept human being at the center? See, when human knowledge it began its course, when religion came into prominence, what was the center of our attention? We were mostly discussing about gods and or maybe nature we were discussing, and nature also in some sort of representatives of gods or supernatural powers. These were the things with that our attention of humanity was, or attention of our civilization was focused upon. Next, after that, there were kings and queens. That is that is aristocratic class, the royal class. So most of the history, if we know, has been obsessed about these two things: God or the royal class. These two things. There are others also. It's very recent, hardly a few hundred years ago, when human being or man came at the center. The focus shifts on the human being. That is what humanism is. Okay, I'll give you an example to understand what humanism is. This is the example I give quite often, and I think it will help you understand it. Suppose, uh, suppose you're going to some place, okay, and you see a sex worker, or in other word, you see a woman who is a prostitute. Then what would be the reaction of different people over here? People who come from different backgrounds. So, for example, what would be the focus of religion over here? Think about how religion or a person who is more preoccupied by religious thoughts or who has immersed in religious doctrines, what would he or she think about this sex worker? What would be the primary concern? What would be the first point that would be triggered in the mind of such a person who comes from religion? Maybe he will think that this sex worker is immoral. She is spreading immorality. She's polluting the world around us. She should be banished from this place. How immoral it is, and so on. This might be the first reaction that would come from someone who looks at the world from a religious point of view. Now, someone who is from too much immersed from consumerism, or I may add one more word over here, materialism, or maybe utilitarian point of view, or someone who just is concerned uh, about getting more and more happiness. So how would this kind of person would react to this sex worker? How would he look at her? He would look at her as if she is a tool for his gratification of sexual desires. And he would look at her as if she is there to bring him pleasure. So do you see how different people are reacting to a sex worker? Let us talk about some other person. There is a police officer or someone who represents the legal thought. How would a person who belongs to legal thought, who is possessed by legalities and so on, how would he look at her? He would look at her as if she's, or indeed that she is spreading some illegal activities. He will maybe try to put her behind bars, maybe try to fine her, put some fine on her, or report to some other authorities, and so on. So, all these three uh, different perspectives of life, religion, consumerism, um, and this legal uh, and this law, or legal, or I can rather say law, they also claim that they are humanist to a great extent. But are they indeed humanist here? Now, I want to come to the question of how would a humanist person, imagine that there is a humanist person, a person who believes in humanity, a person who believes in humanity, when he looks at the sex worker, then what would be his first thought? What would be his first thought? His first thought could be, for example, what would happen to the child of a prostitute? He may think about what would happen to the child of prostitute, because they'll have you ever thought that they live without a father? There is no man who would provide his name, or there's no man who would provide them custody. No man ever. They are fatherless children. Which school or which institution would provide shelter to these children? A humanist would be concerned about whether these people, the prostitute herself and their children, are they getting access to health care? In case, for example, she wants to go for abortion, it's a norm in India that when a woman wants to go for abortion, she is quite often asked by the clinic, and not for just for abortion, even for ultrasound during pregnancy, they're quite often asked who is the father. You have to tell the name of the father. So in such a situation, how would she avail healthcare service? So what would happen to the happen to in old age to this prostitute? So these are the questions that might occur to the mind of a prostitute, to the mind of a humanist. And these questions, as we see here, they're very different from the questions and the points that emerge when a person who holds religious belief looks at a prostitute, or a person who is more from modern consumerist or capitalist point of view looks at her, or a person from legal or law fraternity look at her. So this is just a practical demonstration, or a small example to show you that how humanism, what humanism actually means. Any points from here? Anything from your side you want to add? Anyone? So in humanism, couple of things that we ought to remember is that that first point that I told you here was that focus on human being, and the second point that I can tell here is it's the desires, that human being, he has desires. You cannot expect a human being to completely discard the desires. Desires are a fundamental aspect of human being. It is the desires that make us human. It is our emotions that make us humans. Otherwise, we would be just machines. So let us have a positive interpretation, positive look at desires and emotions. In the essay topic that I had given you, where I had asked you, sensuality is the slaughterhouse of humanity. So sensuality is looked with contempt. It is looked down upon. It has been criticized a lot in religious doctrines. But humanism would say that sensuality is a very fundamental aspect of human being. And remember, in sensuality, a lot of desires are there. Most of you or some of you had focused on only sexuality as an aspect of sensuality. Sensuality has All sensuality means all those desires when you're concerned with all those pleasures which are born out of senses. So human being, when God has given us those senses, then how can we criticize pursuit of the pleasures born out of those senses? So the way a humanism look at life is very different than how these other people look at life. And likewise, we would also accept the weakness of a human being, the weakness that human being make. We have to understand, we have to expect that human beings, they do have weaknesses. They are not like God. And as one of you mentioned, stop idealizing. What, who said that? One of you had mentioned, stop idealizing human being. Human being is not perfect. He is not like God. He is not Alexander the Great. He is not. He is not Alexander the Great or any such historical figures that we are quite often obsessed with. Man is not like that. Man has weakness also. Man has desires also. He just accept that we are plain simple human beings. Okay, and a human being makes errors also. They errors, fault lines, faults. These are very much human in nature. So we should not admonish a person when he makes errors and faults. Is it, do you understand it now? So this is an aspect of humanism that I want you all to focus upon. Okay. These are slightly those things which are considered negative. Generally, they are considered negative. Generally, nobody appreciates them. But in humanism, we would talk about these things also. These things, regrets. Human being has regret also. He has dreams also. He has little desires also, and he has emotions, and in emotions he has many emotions, and some of these emotions may be positive emotions, some of these emotions may be negative emotions, and some of them may be positive, like maybe love, maybe courage. There may be some like fear, there may be some like envy. All of them are normal human emotions. We should accept that human being is full of these emotions, and to completely conceive of human being as a perfect being, as someone who is just perfect, who has none of these weaknesses. It is inhuman to expect a human being to be like that. I will give you a couple of more examples. Okay, so think about this. Think about this, that there is a father. Okay, there is a father. He one day walks into the room of his little girl. Okay, this girl is say imagine this girl is like 16-year old, and he enters the room accidentally, in either in her absence, the girl is not there, and what he'll finds out is that there are some greeting cards, that there are some maybe some greeting cards or flowers or these kind of things, or some poetry which has been written over there, and it has been possibly given to her by some boy in her school or in her college. Now what should be the reaction of a father? What should be the reaction of a father? Should the father call upon that girl and punish her, saying that you are indulged in immoral activities? You should be only concerned about studies. Why are you indulged in all these things? Why are you not thinking about your career? You should be concerned about your career only. Why are you indulged in these activities? Should he punish her? Should he restrict her freedom? What should be the reaction? Or should this father just accept that, okay, this is a very human behavior? Her daughter who is growing up, it is very human behavior. Is it not human behavior for a girl who is turning adolescent or young, that she gets some appreciation or admiration by opposite gender? Attraction towards opposite gender is a very normal aspect of life, which happens to every individual. So shouldn't we accept it? I'm not saying that we should glorify it, not that we should completely be overpowered by such passions, not that we let these passions overwhelm us and interfere in our development and interfere in our other endeavors of life, but to completely develop a feeling of guilt or remorse just because such emotions they find some expression somewhere on the surface level or beneath the surface. There are little murmurings of these emotions. Then why should there be retribution? Why should there be punishment, and especially punishment which is disproportionate? I've given you this example because we live in a patriarchal world. Quite often we see in a patriarchal world or an orthodox society where girls, even recently I saw a news where a man just killed his daughter because his daughter was falling in love with a man which her father did not approve. So these murders, what do we call them? These honor killings. Honor killings. Honor killings are definitely illegal. Everybody would say that they're illegal. No sane person would say that they are legal. Honor killings are illegal. But what about these little cute things in life? How many human beings who claim to be rational in public life, who might claim to be judges and lawyers in their public life, or claim to be educated in their public life, how many of them would be open to such things, such behaviors of their children in personal life? These are some of the things that I want to touch upon when I'm giving you examples of humanism. Anything you have to add? Okay, my dear friend, students, see this thing. Humanism mean a lot of other things also, like having empathy or having concern for the welfare of human being, to provide food to every human being, good services, healthcare, and all these things. Not these things are also humanism, no doubt about it. But most of the time, when you're talking about humanism, I see people who are preparing for UPSC essays and in this UPSC in general, they are more concerned about very superficial matter of humanism. As if humanism is all about providing good governance or providing the basic minimum facilities of life, removing hunger and removing poverty, and bringing people out of their misery and economic misery, and especially their poor economic conditions. What I want to say, no doubt these things are also a part of humanism. So, humanism, yes, it means uh, yes, it means bringing people out of poverty. It means providing healthcare to people. It means providing basic necessities of life to people. No doubt all these things are there. But and humanism means good governance. All these are aspects of humanism. But there's a lot more. There is a lot more, and those lot more things which are generally ignored, especially by students who come from non-humanities background. That is why I am touching upon and stressing upon those things also. Okay, so it is not that I am criticizing these things, empathy, ethics, in fact rationality also. Now, what I want here, if you have been able to understand if you some conceptual uh, framework, or if you have got some understanding of humanism, try to juxtapose humanism with all other or any other school of thought. Like I asked you to compare it with religion, I asked you to compare it with law, and compare it with science, compare it with likewise rationality, and so on. A question on these lines uh, is possible. It has been there in UPSC previously also. It can be there again also. It is quite possible. Okay, this is one thing that you have to do. We will do it somewhere in our discussion today, if you will call upon so. If you want, or but in your mind, be prepared for a topic like this in which the writer, be prepared for a topic like this in which the essay topic wants you to talk about the dynamics between humanism and human-like qualities on the one hand, and something else on the other hand. It could be religion, it could be law, it could be science, it could be rationality, or maybe it could be some other aspect of human existence or human knowledge. And we may have to juxtapose it with humanism. How would you be able to juxtapose it with humanism? When you will have some understanding of these things. Okay. Now, I will give some, let us also compare this humanism, for example, with feminism also. You can compare humanism with any of these things. You can compare humanism even with socialism. Is socialism and humanism same? We can compare it with modern democratic system also. Is humanism same as democracy? समझ में आ रहा है आप लोगों को? What I want is don't have just a very superficial understanding of humanism, but rather think about all these aspects also. Anything from your side? See, I'll give you some more examples here from literature. Uh, there is this novel God of Small Things, in which there is a character Ammu, and she is around 29. I think she is 29-year old. Okay, she is 29-year-old woman, and she is divorced, or rather, her husband was alcoholic. And this Ammu, she falls in love with a Dalit man. Okay, she falls in love with a Dalit man. His name is Veluta. She elopes with him, or sort of she is found in making love with him, or they're they're seen in some physical, they engage in some love making activity, or they're in the river and they're caught, and then they're punished very severely. That is the plot of this novel. But before that scene happens, we see I remember a scene in which Ammu, who is a 29-year-old woman, she had been divorced because her first husband was alcoholic, abusive, violent, and a completely dysfunctional man. So she had ran away. She returned to her home. In her home, she lived with the rest of the family, which was completely oppressive, and the rest of the family never accepted her back. And this Amu, she had two little children. Okay, she lived with two little kids. And what we expect a woman. Now, let us understand this world from a feminist point of view. Feminist point of view. What we generally expect a woman to be like, especially a mother. Have you ever celebrated Mother's Day or Women Day? Have you ever celebrated this? Many of you would be celebrating. So what happens on a Women Day or a Mother's Day? Most of you, including girls, including women, you share some thoughts which glorify women, how much women have sacrificed in this world, how much strong they are. And likewise on Mother's Day, especially, you mentioned that how mother is a representation of sacrifice, how she has completely suppressed all her desires, and she lives every second of her life only thinking about the welfare of her kids. She has no goal in her life, no existence, no pursuit of desires, and so on. In all this glorification, have we not disallowed a woman from her pursuit of desires? Even if a woman is a mother, she may be a 29-year-old, she may be in her 30s, or whatever age group she may belongs to. Just because a woman is a mother, is it necessary that we remove from her any expression or desire of sexuality or sexual desires? Is it illegal, or is it completely unethical for her to have such desires? There is a chapter where you would see that this Amu, and I've done PhD on this novel actually, so I can uh, I can share with you that chapter also. What happens in that novel is, and you can mention it somewhere in your essays also, in case ever a need arises. That in this novel, what in one of the chapter, this Amu, she is her body. She is lying in her room, and her body. Her twins are playing with her body. Her twins want to find proximity and find motherly love from her. But she is more preoccupied or thinking about being loved by Velutha. And her sexual desires are churning up and they are in conflict with the motherly role which she has to play. And she suddenly leaves that place. She walks out into out of the room. She looks at her body and she imagines several things, that how her body is still sensual today and how she has often overlooked it. And then these little kids who are twins, they also feel sort of little complex or competitive. They feel that yes, their mother is being chased or being being there is a sense of competition which these twins are facing from some other man, possibly Velutha or some other man who is trying to get proximity of their mother, who is trying to get the same love which they are also yearning to it. The thing that I want to tell you over here is this is a very small little example to show that human emotions are extremely complex, and it is inhuman to expect humans to just simplify their emotions and just to say that a woman, and especially a mother, should not have uh, personal desires or desires which are inconsistent with the idealized image of a mother which the society has constructed and imposed on her, even with her consent. Most of the women may not even feel that how the society, it just does not allow them to think for their own self. So this is one example. One more example that you can learn, which you can refer to, is the feminist poem Kamala Das, and she has written a poem, An Introduction. I have explained that poem in my on my YouTube channel. You can refer to it, or in class also. I will share with you that poem, An Introduction. But in that introduction also, there is a similar yearning by the poetess who wants to pursue her desires, but the society does not allow her to do so. The society pushes her to live with a man who is quite older to her, who to whom she has been married, or she has been coerced to marry, and with whose family she is living a life where stereotypes have been imposed on her, and she feels confined from all the spaces. So there is a desire for freedom in her mind. It is not that I'm promoting a rebel kind of behavior. What I want to say here is again that human beings are very complex organisms, and it is wrong for us to expect them to fit into some ready-made compartments or ready-made formulas, and to say that yes, a wife should act like this, a mother should act like this, a father should act like this, and so on. Even now, one next topic, if I can touch upon, I should not be. I mean, this might draw a lot of controversy over here. But when we talk about uh, monogamy, or when we talk about, uh, let us pose this question: there is a woman or there is a human being who is not receiving love from his or her spouse at all. In any way, they're not. He or she is not getting love from his or her spouse. Constant mental cruelty is there. Constant disapproval is there. Uh, Mental violence is there, and so on. And if that person now seeks some emotional support or even some physical proximity from other human being, what should be the reaction of society? Should they be punished? Should they be ridiculed? Should they be criticized? The fact is, see, any case like this is extremely complex. We cannot create one generalization for everything. We have to look into the perspective of the people who are living that life, and we should not be forcing our view upon them. We should not be forcing our concept of morality on them. I know that this could be very controversial, and many of you may not receive this thing with positivity. But I'm giving you these example to help you understand what humanism is. Now, let us again bring to the fore what humanism is, or why do we call this discipline humanities? You must have heard of this word humanities. Have you heard of it? Humanities. There is this word called humanities and social sciences. In many colleges, this department is clubbed together. What is the difference between humanities and social sciences? Social sciences, this could help you write an essay in case if there is an topic on research or epistemology and so on. Epistemology is a word which means search of knowledge. Okay, remember this word epistemology, it means search of knowledge. Check this spelling epistemology. I'm not very sure of the spelling of this word right now. Epistemology, it means search of knowledge. Now, different disciplines they try to do that. Different disciplines want to try to do that. Science people are doing it in their own way. Mathematicians are doing it in their own way. Engineers are doing it in their own way. How social sciences are doing it? Social sciences, it consists of disciplines like sociology, which see people as belonging in groups. They see people that as if they belong in groups, and there are certain traits which are shared by the entire groups, and those entire groups that define their life a lot more than anything else. So these are social sciences. It could also include subjects like political science, or subjects like econom economics. Sometimes we include that over here. But the point here is, in social sciences, we generally see people in some way belonging to a group. But in humanities, we see, we try to step into the shoes of the person whom we are discussing. We try to see the world from the perspective of the human being whom we are discussing. We try to keep aside our perspectives of religion, our perspective of morality, our perspective of law, or all other perspective. We want to put them aside. And we want to consider how the world would appear to the person whom we are talking about. So there is this person, how would the world appear to him? So the previous example which I gave you, there is this human being who has never received any love from the person to whom he or she was wedded, and suddenly he finds a little appreciation from the other person, a little acceptance from the other person. How complex these situations is. Let us look at the world from this person and set aside all our norms of morality, ethics, law, religion, spirituality, sociology, psychology, everything. Let us put them aside. Market, socialism, everything should put them aside, and just look at this world from the perspective of this human being and try to understand how he has suffered, how what desires he have, what past he had, what future he wants to build, what other circumstances he is surrounded by. And then we will say that yes, we are moving towards humanism. Are you now able to understand what humanism is? थोड़ा थोड़ा समझ में आ रहा है any feedback or any comments from you people? Hello? Okay. Any questions so far?
Sir, is this completely devoid of any ethical or moral considerations?
You asked this question, is it completely devoid of any ethical,
Ethical, moral considerations.
ethical and moral consideration?
Yes, sir. So, like in the above example, we're trying to understand how that woman or that person who was not receiving love from their spouse would be feeling.
Hmm.
Can we take it to another level where we're trying to understand the perspective of a criminal, like um, let's a person, a rapist, let's say, or a person who commits sexual abuse against children or people like that? Do we go to that level also in humanism?
Yeah,
What goes
sometimes.
inside the mind of a criminal?
Yeah, sometimes we do. I won't say that there are no ethical and moral considerations to this. Is a very interesting question that you have put. That in humanism, is humanism uh, is humanism devoid of any ethical and moral considerations? You have asked these questions. Okay, you have asked these questions. So let us talk about it. There are both yes and no to this. It's not a very straight answer to this. It is yes to a great extent because we believe that ethics and morality, uh, whenever we are talking about ethics and morality, what they are, ethics and morality, they have been, first of all, they have been created by the dominant class. It is the dominant class which has a complete say in deciding what is ethical and what is moral. Second aspect to it is how do we actually define moral and ethical? We saw in the first few sessions how difficult it was to define what is true. And in the postmodern world, where I talked about how meaning and vocabulary and language is so much vague and difficult to catch, and it's floating. It's like we are talking about floating air. It's not. They're not rigid. They are not fixed. So in that highly gaseous kind of world where there's nothing solid, everything is floating. It's like a bubbles. They're moving in the air. So how do we take hold of reality? So reality itself is very flimsy. There is no fixed reality. It's all about dominance. There is a psychological and social background also, which defines a lot of things and all these aspects. So to a great extent, we say yes, ethics and morality constriction, they have to be reduced. And most importantly, power structures, and especially caste norms, especially based out of gender and all such things, colonial and non-colonial versus colonized, all these and many other aspects of these things, they would define ethics and morality in a way, they will define them in such a way that the weaker person or the person who is weak would always feel um, even more negative. It will be difficult to look at the world from his point. So yes, to a great extent, we can say that there are less ethical consideration, but there is no also, because when you're talking about ethics and morality, uh, our primary concern is the well-being of a human being, the well-being of a human being, well-being of a human being. So when you talked about rape, okay, it's a very violent crime, but uh, when a rape happens, we are looking at the world not only from the person who committed it, but also from the person upon whom it was committed. So we have to look at the world from her point of view also. And it is humanist intervention that many of the laws that were once upon so much deeply entrenched and deep and so much widely accepted, like the two finger test that used to be so much such a norm just a few years ago in our own lifetime, which hardly a few years ago, till a few years ago, it was very much accepted in public discourse, in legal fraternity. So these kind of things were challenged because humanism, it urged the law, it urged ethics, and it urged all other such books of human knowledge to make some revision and think about how they were ignoring the plight of victims. So in this way, we cannot say that there are no ethical considerations. There are ethical considerations also in humanism, because humanism, it strives to seek for the welfare of a human being. Having said that, one more point that I want to tell you. You pointed out this question that in a violent crime, a heinous violent crime like rape, would humanism try to justify the world from the point of view of the criminal? This is what you asked. Is this
Yes, yes, sir.
so you asked, for example, that if we are talking about humanism or humanity rather, you are talking about humanism or humanities, would it justify the world from if a crime take place, it could be a rape, it could be a murder, it could be any other crime also, would it justify the world from the criminal point, from, or at least help us look at the world from the standpoint of the criminal? And my answer to this is yes, it sometimes does. And I will give you an example over here. Uh, this example, I think it's a good thing that you mentioned this. I've asked you several times that please read this novel, Kiran Desai's. This is the novel that I have quite often asked. What is the novel names? The Inheritance of Loss. Please, please, it's I understand this it may not be possible for you to read this novel in entirety, but read its summary at least, so that the examples whenever I give, you are able to understand. One example I'm giving you, this is a chapter in that novel. I will share it with you also. So there is in this novel, what happens is there is a judge or there is a man. Okay, there is a man and he is, I think, around 23-year old, 23 or he is in around 23-year old, and he has a wife, and his wife is name is Nimi, and Nimi is younger to him, I think maybe 18 or 19, like that, around, let us, I think 18-year old. Now what happens is judge judge he what happens is if you know in Indian families how happens is there was child marriage, and when child marriage took place, then this judge, he was young, he was around 19-year old. The girl was around 13 or 14-year old. She was little girl. And when he tried to go closer to her on the wedding night, the day of their marriage, and he tried to take away, pull her sari and so on. So this girl, she shrank and she sort of cried in fear. She started crying and sobbing. And as a result of which, this man, he immediately got terrified. He said, he apologized. He said sorry and he left the room. He was also young, 18 or 19-year old. Now let us add 5 years to this. And this judge who was 19-year old, he goes to London, and in London, he is trained as a judge. He has prepared for the same exam which you people are preparing for UPSC. In those days, it used to be ICS, and we are talking about the year 1940s. So in 1940s, he goes to London. He's trained. He returns as a judge, and now his mind has changed. And why his mind has changed is now he has become very much European in nature. Now his mind has been impacted by colonialism, and now he is a white colonizer. Think of it. He is like he's a white colonizer. He is like a white colonizer, or what I can say as a brown colonizer. He has turned into a brown colonizer. Now he walks into the room. They both are brought together. This girl had sort of some good feelings for the boy, but on the wedding night, when they are brought together, the marriage does not consummate. The author makes it clear that there is no consummation of marriage, and a lot of people who are peeping outside their home, their room, their family members, grandmother, for example, and all the ladies of the house, they urge this man that have you consummated this marriage? They pressurize him if he has consummated the marriage, and he repeatedly feels shy and he says no, and he is also irritated and so on. And one day what happens is, it's a very strange incident. He was carrying some puff which those people they used to they do their makeup, and this puff, it is stolen by his wife. Out of innocence, his wife, out of curiosity, he takes up those puff and he puts them in her body because she's so fond of those things. And these puffs are lost. These puffs are lost. The judge cannot see judge cannot see them. Give me 2 more minutes. I will explain your question also, the answer to that question. The puffs are lost, and this judge is in a rage. He's looking for where they are, who stole them. When he talks to his family, the entire family started laughing at him. Oh, तुम तो इंग्लैंड गए थे, ये औरतों वाला सामान लेकर क्या कर रहे हो, ये पाउडर लगाते हो तुम औरतों वाली चीजें क्या कर रहे हो. The entire family, instead of appreciating and instead of validating his high egoism, कि मैं तो गोरा साहब बन गया हूँ, his family started ridiculing him, laughing at him, making fun of him, ki what you are doing with this feminine stuff. And he was in a rage. Let us understand why he was in rage. He was in rage first and foremost because his mind had been influenced while he was in Europe, and he was fascinated by white women. He was fascinated by white women, and when he comes at his home and he sees a brown girl waiting for him, he disapproves of her. Secondly, the family, which is constantly nudging him to forcefully violate her wife. The family, it's a completely patriarchal setup. And thirdly, when his puffs are stolen by the wife, and then when he sees her, and when he realizes that his wife has stolen them, then he, in a very violent method, he commits rape upon his wife. So let us understand this thing, and this is very, in a very detailed manner, author has described it. What we want to show here is that how the judge changed his behavior, what triggered him. Was he really violent in the first instance? Possibly not. Initially, many years ago, he was quite thoughtful when he dealt with his wife. But the exposure to the Western world, constant nudging by the patriarchal family, being disapproved by the rest of the family who did not validate his high degrees, his so-called high status in society, and finally being left with his wife, he committed rape. This is the word which he used, which the author Kiran Desai used, and it was very violent. It did not just happen once; it happened repeatedly for the rest of the life of that woman. If you will read, you will find tears in your life, that how that poor woman, she was constantly tortured by this man. This man wanted her to look like a foreigner. And I think this is something which happens to a lot of people. I'm going in detail of it because with in this discussion, I also want you to have some understanding of what we call as post-colonialism, in which we try to understand that how the colonial rule, it changed us forever. How the the white people came over here, it changed us forever, and it exists today because a lot of men are there who, when they see their wives, they expect their wives to look as white or fair skinned as what they have imagined. And when they cannot find their wife like that, when they see their wife, for example, this woman, she used to wear bangles. She used to wear bangles. She used to put, I think, hair in coconut oil in her hair. She used to wear tinklets and a lot of these feminine artifacts which are quite popular amongst Indian women. But this judge, who had been fascinated by the white world, instead of appreciating the Indianness and the beauty of his wife, he always violates her, he always punishes her, and in the end, one day comes, imagine the day when he is always trying to make her European, he is always trying to make her look like, make her European, and one day when he goes and when he sees her sitting on the Western toilet in an Indian style, she's sitting on the she was a poor she was an innocent woman, and she was sitting on the Western toilet in an Indian style, and this judge was so much infuriated with it, he took her head and dipped it in the toilet commode. So much violent and abusive this man had become. So this is how we want to say that when we're talking about humanities, we are also looking into that what made a person a rapist. A rapist was not just born out of thin air. It was a product of circumstances, maybe we can say, and somewhere the rest of the society it also nudged him. For example, when the marriage had not been consummated, it were the ladies of the house who and the men of the house who were quite often taunting this man कि मर्द बन अभी तक marriage consummate नहीं करी है क्या so rapist does not occur on his own. It is the society which contributes. And towards the end we will see this thing that the judge will meet a very sad end. The judge will live a very isolated life, and somewhere towards the end you will start feeling little empathy for the judge also. In the last and the final chapter, I don't want to tell what happens actually. There is no human being to with who is friend of this judge. This judge is living a completely isolated life, all even after death of Nimi. For many decades later, nobody loves him except a dog, and that dog is stolen by some other man. And when you read this novel, you will feel, you will start crying for this judge also, even though this judge once upon a time had been a rapist. Not exactly see, and as a humanist, now we are talking about humanist, and see how beautifully humanists have tried to make this thing very clear. They're doing two things which no legal system or no law would like to talk about. No rationality or law would like to talk about. When they're talking about rape, for example, on the one hand, they're talking about how the judge also had a story. The judge was also a product of the circumstances, and he was not born a rapist. So one, in some way, they're sort of uh, creating our empathy for the judge. They are also trying to show the human side of the judge. On the other hand, they are trying to show that how his wife Nimi was felt constant tortures, how she lived a life that was worse than hell. She died a very tragic end. How she was full of disease, and even during disease, this husband would violate her. And when she became sick with some skin rashes because of bad health, this judge would even wash himself every time he would come close to treat her like an untouchable, even though her miseries were a product of his violations. The point what we want to say is the law. What would law say? Law say that it's a marital issue, and rape is not recognized in Indian dictionaries of legal jurisprudence. But here we see humanities disciplines or humanism, they want us to see both the pictures. The picture where a rapist, we are drawing empathy towards the rapist, and we are also trying to understand that how a person can be a victim of rape, even if the law and the legal system fails to recognize it a rape. So in this way, humanities as a discipline, it wants us to, humanities as a discipline and literature, it wants us to develop certain perspectives which are left or buried under popular discourses. Okay, and when we are humanism, when you're talking about humanism, uh, we have to understand world from these perspective also. We have to understand how law, for example, could be insufficient, how law could be insufficient, or how our perceptions of morality, they are insufficient, or there are certain inconsistencies when they deal with the sufferings or experiences of human life. They miss certain experiences of human life. This is one thing that I have to say. So I think I have answered your question. uh, Ashish, is it clear now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I went in little detail. I understand that I stretched it a little more, but I went in little detail because I wanted you all to have a glimpse of this novel. And I think this is one chapter. I think it occurs in the middle portions. And so I want you all to go through the summary of this novel. Last year also I told it. Every year I tell the same to my students. And in this novel, you will get wonderful examples which you can quote in every essay. Even on social justice, last year there was some topic on social justice in which the many examples from this essay were quite, they were very much relevant, we could say. Okay. So now taking this discussion forward, I want to talk about humanism. One couple of more poems that I want to tell you. I'm not reading from those scripts, but there is this poem, Gitanjali. And who has written this poem? Tagore. We call Tagore as a humanist. Why do we call Tagore as a humanist? Because Tagore is not, even when Tagore is talking about spirituality and God, he's not glorifying God in vacuum, but rather he's also focusing on the human being. And there are some very famous lines in Gitanjali. I think this occurs in fourth or fifth. I'm forgotten which particular stanza it occurs. I will search it for you and I will share it with you. In those particular lines, Tagore very categorically states that who that where is God residing? He says God is not residing in the temple. He is not residing in beautiful dresses. That is not the place where God is. He's not wearing very beautiful dresses, pure and beautiful dresses made of gold and silver. No, that is not what gold, that is not what where God would be. God, if you want to know God, you have to go with the tiller or the person who is breaking stones on the road, the farmer, the laborer. The God is with them. And God is sharing the dust with them, the dust, the sweat, the labor of these men. This is what which God is also wearing in some ways. I'll just Google these lines. One second. I will. Now let me share this screen with you all. Hello, can you all see the screen? If you want to remember, see these lines. Uh, leave this. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, see, this is the poem of Tagore, Gitanjali, for which he was awarded Nobel Prize. And what he says over here, leave this chanting and singing and telling of deeds. ये माला फेरना बंद कर दो. Whom those thou worship in this lonely dark corner of a temple with doors all shut. ये जो मंदिर है जिसके दरवाजे बंद हैं इन अंधेरे गलों में तुम किस इन इस अंधेरे कॉर्नर में तुम किसकी पूजा कर रहे हो. ओपन दाई आईज एंड सी द गॉड इज नॉट बिफोर दी. आंखें खोल कर देखो वहां पर भगवान नहीं मिलेगा. नाउ सी दीज लाइंस. ही इज देयर विद द टेलर where the tiller is tilling the hard ground and where the path maker is breaking stones. वो वहां पर है जहाँ पे टिलर उस सख्त पत्थर को तोड़ रहा है और उस सख्त जमीन को तोड़ रहा है यानी कि पीजेंट के साथ है और वो जो पत्थर तोड़ने वाला है पत्थर को तोड़ रहा है. ही इज विद देम इन द सन. वो धूप में है. एंड इन शावर बारिश में है. एंड हिज गारमेंट इज कवर्ड विद डस्ट. तो गॉड का जो गारमेंट है वो धूल में भरा हुआ है. पुट ऑफ द होली मेंटल एंड इवन लाइक हिम कम डाउन ऑन द डस्टी सॉइल. तो जो गॉड है स्पिरिचुअलिटी को टैगोर ने ये डायमेंशन दिया. एंड दिस इज अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग डायमेंशन. So this poem, Tagore, Gitanjali, for which Tagore won Nobel Prize, God, God is there, no doubt about this. God is there, but God से पहले human being है. You cannot reach God if you are not appreciating a human being. You cannot find God if you are blind to the human being. So human beings come first. And along with human being, you can reach out to the God. Are you getting this thing? So here we see how religion has been humanized, how spirituality has been humanized. Okay. So if you want, you can read this poem of Gitanjali. It's a very beautiful poem. Uh,
So
and
what was the meaning of this last line of the paragraph which you were just reading, stanza last, this put of the holy mantle?
where is it? Put off the holy mantle and even like him come down on the dusty soil. होली मेंटल इन द सेंस वो जो रिचुअल से मतलब आप करते हो हाथ में पूजा लेकर कुछ जो भी आप कुछ चीजें जलाते हो विच आर वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू होल्ड. सो ये सारी चीजें विच यू कैन डू ओनली इन द विसिनिटी ऑफ अ टेम्पल और इन ए सेक्लूडेड प्लेस or in a very so-called pure and sacred atmosphere. So he's saying that leave that pure sacred atmosphere ambience. वहां पे आप अगरबत्ती जला रहे हो या या घंटियां बजा रहे हो, वो सारी चीजें छोड़ो. वो जो धूल, जहाँ पे धूल है, जहाँ पे मिट्टी है, जहाँ पे पसीना है, जहाँ पे लेबर है, वहां पर आओ और वहां पे गॉड मिलेगा. जहाँ पे मजदूर पत्थर तोड़ रहा है, जहाँ पे किसान मिट्टी खोद रहा है, वहां पे गॉड है. सो आप समझ में आया आशीष?
Yes, sir.
तो दिस इज वेयर गॉड इज. और यही जो कुछ बातें इस तरह की एक और पोइट्री में मैंने हिंदी पोइट्री में पढ़ी थी. जब आई फॉरगॉट द नेम ऑफ द पोइट्री, जिसमें नारद मुनि जो होते हैं वो विष्णु भगवान से पूछते हैं कि आपके फेवरेट जो हैं वो कौन है, जो सबसे ज़्यादा आपकी भक्ति करते हो वो कौन है. तो नारद वॉज एक्सपेक्टिंग कि विष्णु वुड से कि नारद इट इज़ यू, बिकॉज नारद से ज़्यादा नारायण नारायण नाम किसने नहीं लिया. It is no one else apart from Narad Muni who would have recited names of Narayan or God. It's in every breath Narad Muni is worshipping Narayan. But still Narayan says that my favorite worshipper is the person, that farmer. And Narad Muni says वो farmer तो सिर्फ 2 बार आपका दिन में नाम लेता है. And Vishnu भगवान says that yes, Narayan says yes, it is so. एक बार वो घर से सुबह जाते हुए नाम लेता है, खेत की तरफ जाता है, वो खेत में मेहनत करके आता है, फिर घर में घुसते हुए नाम लेता है. एंड दिस इज ऑल आई वांट. अपने अपना सारा अपना काम कर रहा है, ड्यूटी कर रहा है, जहां टाइम मिल रहा है वो मेरे को मेरा नाम ले रहा है. अगेन इन दिस पर्टिकुलर एनेक्डोट व्हाट वी सी इज एप्रिसिएशन ऑफ ह्यूमन लेबर. कि आप दिन भर अपनी अपने वर्क को, अपने ड्यूटीज को छोड़कर, अपनी वाइफ को, अपने बच्चों को छोड़कर, अपने हस्बैंड को छोड़कर, अपने अपने पेरेंट्स को छोड़कर, अपनी सारी इन चीज़ों को छोड़कर अगर आप सिर्फ भगवान का नाम ले रहे हो, यू विल नॉट गेट गॉड. God मिलेगा along with duties when you're performing your duties, and the rare time when you get, you remember him. So in this way we see that even religion has been humanized. Now religion is coming close to humanity. Getting it over here?
Yes, sir.
Now
Yes.
one more poem I will show you. Okay. Um, uh, is the screen visible to you all? What you can see? Can you see the screen? Oh, I think we missed it. Can you see the screen now?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Okay. So read this poem about Jayant Mahapatra, and he is a Sahitya Award winner. When I started this discussion on humanism, and I gave you an example of a prostitute and how a humanist person would look at him, then this is the poem that had inspired me or gave me that view. So I will quickly read this poem, Hunger. And this poem is being told by a fisherman, and this fisherman, he is possibly talking about his young daughter whom he is selling for prostitution. So read this poem, and what he says, it was hard to believe the flesh with heavy on my back. The fisherman said, "Will you have her carelessly trailing his nets and his nerves as though his words sanctify the purpose with which he faced himself? I saw his white bone trash his eyes." So I here means the narrator who is talking to this fisherman. Okay, so this all conversation goes on, and then move at the last paragraph where he says, I heard him say, my daughter, she's just turned 15. Feel her, I will be back soon. Your bus leaves at 9. The sky fell on me, and my father's exhausted while. Long and lean, her ears were cold as rubber. She opened her wormy legs wide. I felt the hunger there. The other one, the fish slithering, turning inside. So the poet has drawn that how it is extreme hunger which is driving a poor girl, 15-year-old, and even so tragic it is. It is her father who is selling this girl to the narrator. Okay, so there are some other poems also of Jain Mahapatra, which have talked of similar ideas, and they're very popular. These poems are very popular, and he, as I said, he was awarded Sahitya Academy Award. I think in 1980s, somewhere later. I think in 1980s he was awarded a Sahitya Academy Award, and so he is not any some simple guy, and he is very popular in humanities and in our disciplines also. Okay, so these are some of the examples that I thought I would share with you, and I want basically the purpose is again that okay, one more poem I can say, Kamla Das, an introduction. This poem I talked quite often. Kamla Das, an introduction. I just want you to take the text. Where is the text here? Okay, I think okay, so this is the poem Kamala Das, an introduction, where she talks about how she felt, and it's a feminist poem also. This is humanist also. Once I will teach you this poem someday, okay, or you can read it yourself also, or I will teach it somewhere, where shows it how she became a victim. If time permits, can we take it today? But I think it's quite late as of now. आप लोगों में से कई लोगों वेट कर रहे होंगे क्लास सोने का, काफ़ी लेट हो गया है, तो इसको हम कल या कभी और सेशन में डिस्कस कर लेंगे इस पोएम को। ये बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट पोएम है, एंड कमला दास की कुछ ऐसी और पोएम्स हैं जो आई थिंक यू शुड ऑल रीड। ओके, सो दिस इज इट। एनीथिंग फ्रॉम योर साइड so far? Any questions? Okay, so I told you about Jayant Mahapatra. ये सब एमए के मास्टर्स के सिलेबस में इंग्लिश लिटरेचर में पढ़ाए जाते हैं। एंड कमला दास, एंड मोर प्रोमिनेंटली आई टोल्ड यू अबाउट टैगोर। टैगोर गीतांजलि। टैगोर गीतांजलि का एक और पोएम है, पोएम नंबर 35। ये जो मैंने आपको बताई आई थिंक पोएम नंबर 11 थी, और एक पोएम नंबर 35 है, वे द माइंड इज विदाउट फियर। These are very important poems which you all must know. So I think, friends, with this, I would be ending this today's discussion. But yeah, uh, before I do that, very important point which was missed was, मैंने आपसे कहा था कि try to juxtapose humanism with these aspects of life. Humanism with religion, with law, with science, with rationality, with feminism, with socialism, democracy, so on, with all these aspects of life. With science, with rationality. How do you think humanism performs? How are they? What is the relationship between them?
The humanism will work well with feminism and socialism and would be far from religion, law, science, and rationality.
Okay, you say that humanism will work well with feminism, socialism, and
Democracy.
democracy. Okay, and whom it may not work well with
religion, law, science, and rationality.
religion, law. So Rahul, uh, why is it so?
The ideals like religion exhort about responsibility and values like that. But in these ideals are dependent upon the criticism of the desire in a way that desire causes suffering. So desires, when the desires are not demonized, here humanism comes into picture. For example, in the last class you gave the example of feminism,
Hmm.
that some feminist writers try to write about childbirth and their lived experiences
Hmm.
and like that.
Yes, so you're right in saying so that yes, feminism it takes several steps closer to humanism. See, uh, the fact is how I see this thing that each of these things that I mentioned here, they claim that they are talking about humanism also, because we're living in an age where humanism is really considered to be a great goal. So all of them, they are talking about humanism in many ways, though what they preach may be different from how they actually execute. So for example, science also, when you will go to any conference or any engineering college or any some big place, you will see that one of the stated goals that they will say is that the goal of this institute, the goal of science or our research is to serve humanity, to uplift humanity. No science would say that we are here to punish or to make life miserable. So in all of them, all of these areas, feminism, socialism, democracy, rationality, they all claim that they're working for humanism. In reality, they may not be. There may be difference in their execution, but they all claim that they are working for humanism. Even science claims that. Religion claims so. Religion might say that we want to provide equality to people, we want to keep people away from market, we want to bring peace to people, we want to help them in their sufferings when their loved one dies, and so on. So even religion may claim so. Law may also claim so, that we want to save people from the totalitarian regimes. We want to save people from murderers and people and criminals, and we want to provide a safe environment. So even law may claim so. Each one of them, in some way, it talks about humanism, and each one of them, when it actually runs, somewhere it digresses, somewhere it pushes humanism at the corner. So these nitty gritties or this nuances, try to appreciate these nuances, and if you have time on some papers, try to draw points that how humanism it supports them, and how humanism is supported by them, and also how humanism is contradicted by them. So for example, we are talking about rationality in our previous discussion, even today, and I think in our previous discussion also, when I told you about that novel Cry the Peacock, in which a very rational stoic husband was completely insensitive to the sufferings of his wife, or in a random case when a stoic rational man whose wife pregnancy was failed or aborted in the final stages, and he is not letting go those emotions, not she's not letting his emotional wife outburst and outpour her emotions and heal. So we saw, yes, we saw a contradiction between rationality and humanism, and this contradiction between humanism and rationality is the most important contradiction that you must cater to. But I would also add, even rationality, it comes to save humanism from the encroachment of religion. So for example, if religion says that untouchability or the rigid caste structure is all fine, it says, if it says so in India, in West also religion might say something else. Religion, the religious laws, for example, they might be very inhumane at times. If you know about life before Renaissance, that how church had become quite authoritative and exploitative, and it had become a money-making machine. You could do sin, then you can pay a price to the church, and you could claim to have got rid of those sins. So at that point of time, it was the rationality which came into front, and it guarded humanism from the problems caused by religion, the violence and aggression of religion. It was rationality which came to its front. Even today, when we see religious people, sometimes they are extremely, they become violent, they indulge in violence, or they let a poor man die, and they're more concerned about their pretensions and about their rituals. It is rationality which says that you first have to take care of the human being, not your gods and so on. So let us understand that rationality also has a love and hatred relationship towards humanism. Science also has a love and hate relationship. Democracy also. Democracy, you said democracy is pro-human. I will just play a devil's advocate. Why should democracy be pro-human? So, for example, if majority decides today, tomorrow, that the nation would be governed by one religion, one language, and so on, do you think it would be a very human condition, or we would be going towards humanism? What would be the plight of people who have been left behind? What if democracy, don't you think that democracy also can give rise to certain leaders who are corrupt, who are insensitive to the needs of the people, who care only about their success? And the poem that I told you, an introduction, I was just discussing a few minutes ago, the opening lines of the poem introduction, the poet, she launches an attack on Nehru, where she says, I've heard the name of Nehru. I don't know much about politicians, but I've heard the name of Nehru. Poems first, the opening lines itself, they criticize that how she feels confined by even the political structures also. So it is not 100% true that democracy is always drawn towards humanism or socialism. Yes, socialism, it is drawn towards humanism. What about Marxism? Marxism, yes, Marxism is humanist when Marx says that a human being has a lot of potential and we should help a human being to reach his potential. We should bring a human being out of slavery, out of exploitation. We should make the society egalitarian. So in those discussions, Marxism would also be moving towards humanism, but somewhere it would falter when it will fail to see humans outside those classes which it has conceptualized. Human beings are not just products of classes, and human life has a lot of more nuances than whether he belongs to bourgeois or proletariat. And religion has a lot of positive things also, which are ignored by Marxists. So Marxists are against humanism also. And in a similar way, now I would say even feminists, they are also against humanism also. And many a times they are against humanism also. They are towards humanism, which we have already discussed, but there are instances where they are against humanism also. Because, for example, it is a major criticism of feminists that how they try to create a gulf between the two classes which they have conceptualized. So just like Marxists have conceptualized that there are two classes in the world, one of workers and other of owners, in a similar way, feminists also, they have tried to conceptualize that there are two classes of the world. One is of women, other is of men. And women as a class, they have got one thing in common, that they have suffered for ages oppression at the hand of males. And sometimes feminism or feminist people, they fail to appreciate and understand that at many instances, even men can be victims of gender violence. So the death of Atul Subhash recently, or many such instances, they would not find any space in mainstream feminist discussions. And also when feminism would try to see uh, a family as a tool for oppression, and when they will fail to see the positive role which a family plays in the life of women, then also we can say that feminism might be moving away from humanism, because it is depriving human being the very basic uh, institution in which human being feels safe and comfortable. So all these aspects basically, they are humanist and they are not humanist. And Rahul, I'm saying it to you and I'm saying it to each one of you, all those who are listening, live as well as recorded, that please try to understand that how each one of these, again and again, I'm repeating, they are against humanism. And when I say against humanism, what I mean to say is they are against man. So what I want you to understand is, please try to search for examples where you could discuss how a man can be, by a man I mean a human being, how a human being can be in conflict with feminism, how a human being can be in conflict with religion, how a human being can be in conflict with law, how a human being can be in conflict with science, how he can be in conflict with rationality, how she can be in conflict with democracy, with socialism, and with Marxism, and each one of them. Are you getting my point? The day you are able to evolve this understanding, you will find yourself in a very comfortable position to deal with philosophical essays. Look around you. You're reading, you're preparing for these exams. A lot of governance issues and social issues you would be covering in GS 1, 2, 3. When you're reading them, or even when you're reading ethics, try to understand how a human being is in conflict with these things. Okay? समझ में आ रहा है जो मैं कह रहा हूँ?
Yes, sir.
अब इसका इसका कोई एक फाइनल वो नहीं है, मतलब एक चार्ट नहीं है. कल को कोई इसमें एक नई चीज भी ऐड हो सकती है. इसमें इसमें फॉर एग्जांपल इसमें एनवायरनमेंट मूवमेंट ऐड हो सकता है. एनवायरनमेंट मूवमेंट ऐड हो सकता है. डू यू थिंक एनवायरनमेंट मूवमेंट इज एनवायरमेंटलिज्म is drawn towards humanism? Or in other words, can I simply say that is it possible that a human being can be in conflict with environmental movement? Yes or no? Environmental movement is supporting human beings. It is drawn towards humanism, no doubt about it. And we can give many examples of that. How environmental movement is taking up the issues of man and coming to rescue of humanity or human being uh, from industrialization, from consumerism, and from so on. But how can a human being be in conflict with this? I will add more here. How can a uh, human being be in conflict with nationalism? Most delicate and sensitive thing. How can a human being in conflict with nationalism, or how can a human being be supported by nationalism? Now I'll leave it open to you. Do you think nationalism is a humanist endeavor? It is a debate. You can argue on both the sides as you feel. There have been many people, very iconic scholars, who have said that nationalism is an expression of humanism, and there are who have said the opposite. Tagore said that nationalism is a refuge of scoundrels. So he said so, but there are opposite view also. So nationalism, if there was no nationalism, we might not have ever fought. We might not have ever been able to fought against Britishers. We might have never been able to secure freedom for us. And even today, when we see people like Donald Trump today, they are so much violently, aggressively, they are trying to dominate the rest of the world. It is only nationalist sentiments, perhaps, in the third world country, which can secure them, which can bring them up together, which can divert their resources for their growth rather than being sucked up by the global superpowers. This is just one perspective. There can be counter perspective to that also. They can be counter, then they are counter to counter, and all this is a very interesting debate, which sometimes try to think about it. Okay, is it fine? Anything from your side now? Hello? So with this, I'll be moving towards the closure. we started this discussion of humanism, and most of our discussion with humanism, basically, we are talking about human being. Okay, we are talking about human being. In UPSC, you will often find this essay topic where you will see the word man. Whenever you see this as a topic, man, the word man. By man, we mean human being. Immediately, all this discussion that we had so far, it should be triggered. Okay. Today, quite often we appreciate the positive aspects of a man, a human being. In our previous session, we had talked about stoic values. We had talked about courage, resilience, uh, courage and resilience, and how discipline and control of desires is a very must. It is what makes human being great, and so on. We had a very lengthy discussion on that. Today, our focus had been more drifted towards the weakness, or towards those things which are generally considered not so positive by the society and various other domains, which include uh, the weakness of a human being, and the desires, the dreams, the aspirations, the emotions of a human being. Let us talk about those things, pursue them. Let us make human again, and let us keep human being at the center. This is what the entire idea of humanism is. I gave you this example of how a prostitute would be seen very differently by people who come from different disciplines and different way of life, thoughts, process, and so on. I gave you this example of a father and daughter, and then patriarchal society going for honor killings. Then we talked about how humanism would have these aspects: poverty removal, and empathy, ethics, healthcare. All these things, which are generally we already talk a lot about them. These are obvious aspects of humanism, no doubt about them. But then we saw that there are possibilities that humanism may be in conflict with the rest of these things, and these are very interesting dynamics which unfold between humanism on the one side and between nationalism, environmentalism, religion, law, science, rationality, socialism, democracy, Marxism, feminism, and a whole range of other ideas on the other hand. Then we took up this example of God of small thing, an example where a woman, Ammu, with the help of that, we illustrated that how often in societies, women, they are being coerced, or they are indoctrined to live up to a very idealized life and curb their natural desires, which would have made them very human. Next, we talked about some example of there was an interesting question of, is humanism devoid of any ethical and moral considerations? We looked in both side of it, and then with an example from Kiran Desai's The Inheritance of Laws, I told you that there are a lot of nuances of how human emotions unfold, and how sometimes violence triggers, and it may be when we are it may be insensitivity or ignorance on our part when we offer oversimplistic explanation to them. Then we saw example of Gitanjali's Tagore, where he talked about God lies in the sweat, dust, and labor of the farmer and the stone breaker. And we saw poem of Jayant Mahapatra, and Kamala Das poem also was kept for future discussion. So this was the summary of today's discussion, and I hope this was beneficial to you all. So with this, I would end the discussion now. Okay. Thank you all. Any questions?
So just one thing. So which chapter were you referring to in this novel, The Inheritance of Laws, which we should read at least the summary part?
One second. Ask again, please.
So which chapter were you referring to in this novel, The Inheritance of Laws, which we should read the summary at least?
Okay. Okay. Just hold on. Then I will get the book. Just a second. Okay. So this is the book, Kiran Desai's Inheritance of Laws, and the chapter that I discussed with you all today Uh, okay, so this is the chapter number 28. Okay, let me show you here. Chapter number, is it visible or is it twisted? How is it?
It's visible, sir. 28. Yeah.
Can you see this 28 chapter? And
Yes.
is it also visible? The text, is the text also visible?
So I don't think we'll be able to read very clearly, but yeah.
Yes, okay, is it visible now?
So the angle is oblique here, so it becomes difficult to focus on words.
Okay, let me show you this thing. I'm an old school guy and I love reading things from, I love reading how things from the old way, like in books and all. Can you see it now? Any better, is it?
The angle is better now, and the focus is also, yeah, sometimes it gets better. And
Okay, but I think text may not be visible still, right?
no, sir, text is not visible.
Okay, okay. Okay, so anyway, this is so this is the chapter number 28, page number 165 onwards. Okay, so from here you can, I'll send you the PDF also if you want. I can share the PDF also of this. It's a very interesting book which you all can refer to. See, when you read over here, for example, the aunt had locked it just in case. All the stories of brides trying to escape. So it was the aunt who locked it from outside. And here, there's some very beautiful lines which I love a lot. When he comes home and he's yeah, when he's searching in that scene, when he's searching for the powder puff, and he nowhere else he's able to see, and then suddenly he says to his wife, I haven't. She says to him, I haven't seen it. Why should I pay it any attention? She said. Her heart pounded beneath her two lavender powdered pink and white breasts, beneath her husband's English returned puff. And see these beautiful lines. What it written here. He did not like his wife's face, searched for his hatred, found beauty, dismissed it. I repeat, he did not like his wife's face, searched for his hatred, found beauty, dismissed it. उसके दिमाग इतना खराब हो चुका था, he wanted to hate. उसे वहां पे खूबसूरती सुंदरता मिली, लेकिन उसने उस सुंदरता को भी dismiss कर दिया. Once it had been a terrifying beckoning thing that had made his heart turn to water, but now it seemed beside the point. An Indian girl could never be as beautiful as an English one. मतलब what we see here is कि उसके माइंड में ये चीज़ बैठ गई है कि इंडियन गर्ल्स उतनी सुंदर हो ही नहीं सकती. एंड ये गुस्सा जो है उसके अंदर बार बार उसे वॉयलेंस की तरफ पुश करेगा. Okay, so this was all. This was it.
So, can you please demonstrate in one of the future sessions how to effectively use the content which we derive from the novels, like how to fit in the essay, how to
Yeah,
make use of this content?
yeah, definitely we will do that. Okay, definitely we will do that. I would love to do that. Okay, that's something I love. So, anything else for now? तो अभी के लिए फिर डिस्कशन ये यहाँ पे रोकते हैं, ठीक है? वी विल कंटिन्यू ऑन दैट, and one session we can also have on this novel in detail, we can have it. Meanwhile you can read the summary from internet of this novel. एक बार आपको कैरेक्टर्स का पता चल जाएगा. मेन जो कैरेक्टर है, मोस्ट ऑफ आवर एग्जांपल्स वुड बी सेंटर्ड ऑन दिस जज एंड निमी. निमी की डेथ हो चुकी है जब ये नॉवल लिखा जा रहा है. वो फ्लैशबैक में निमी के इंसिडेंट्स बताए जाते हैं. बट द इंटरेस्टिंग थिंग इज हेयर कि निमी की जो जज की जो ग्रैंड डॉटर है, जिसका नाम साई है, शी इज़ अ 16-year-old गर्ल. अब उसको, उसके अंदर डिज़ायर है लव के लिए, ह्यूमन रिलेशनशिप्स के लिए. शी वांट्स टू फील लव. अब उसको एक लड़का मिलता है, नेपाली लड़का, ज्ञान नाम का. और वो लड़का उसको लेकर वैसे ही इंसेंसिटिव हो जाता है जैसे उसका दादा उसकी दादी को लेकर हुआ था. यानी कि जैसे ये जज ने, जो काम जज ने अपनी वाइफ के लिए किया था, वो आज की जनरेशन में मिलता जुलता काम. लेकिन यहाँ पे चीज़ें रिवर्स हो चुकी हैं. जो साई है वो बहुत ही इंग्लिश कॉन्वेंट एजुकेटेड है, और जो वो नेपाली लड़का है वो एक गरीब सा लड़का है. और उस गरीब से लड़के को उस गरीब से लड़के से जो साई है वो थोड़ा उसे उसे बुरा इस चीज़ का लगता है कि मैं इतना गरीब हूँ, ये इतनी अमीर है, ये इतनी एलीट है, ये वेस्टर्न है, ये पेस्ट्रीज क्यों खाती है, ये 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 शेक्सपियर क्यों पढ़ती है, पेस्ट्रीज क्यों खाती है, ये अमीरों की तरह क्यों रहती है, ये क्रिसमस क्यों सेलिब्रेट करती है, हमारी तरह इंडियन क्यों नहीं है. तो जज हेटेड हिज वाइफ क्योंकि वो इंडियन थी. एंड साई के केस में साई का लवर और दैट बॉय वुड हेट हर बिकॉज ऑफ वेस्टर्न बहुत ज़्यादा हो चुकी है. तो दुनिया में सब एक जैसे हैं. मतलब इट इज़ नॉट कि समवन हु रिटर्न फ्रॉम द वेस्ट उसको हम बुरा बोले. जो हम भी वही गलती करते हैं समटाइम्स, जिसके लिए हम किसी और को क्रिटिसाइज करते हैं. दिस इज़ अ ब्यूटिफुल थिंग विच दिस नॉवल टीचेज अस. सो एनी वे आई वुड लव टू डू दैट, एंड आई विल आपके साथ में बैठकर 3-4 एग्जाम्पल्स इसके लूँगा जो आप अलग अलग जगह पर डिस्कस कर पाएंगे. ओके.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so with this, I would end here. Thank you all.
हाँ हाँ.
One second. Yes.
सर आपने ऐसे देखा, आपके पास टाइम होगा आज ऐसे देखने का?
कौन बोल, राहुल?
यस सर.
सोना नहीं है तुम्हें?
सर सोने के लिए बहुत टाइम है सर.
अच्छा, ठीक है. डिस्कस करते हैं फिर, ठीक है? 2 मिनट, थोड़ा 5 मिनट्स का ब्रेक देते हैं यहाँ पे.
ठीक है
ठीक है,
सर.
मैं देखता हूँ थोड़ा सा एक बार. 1 सेकेंड.